Hello, everybody. This is the Chocolate News Podcast. I'm your co-host, John Alexander Reese.
And I'm your co-host, Andria Carter.
And if you didn't know, the Cincinnati Herald has been around since 1955 and is the leading African-American owned newspaper in the greater Cincinnati area and Northern Kentucky area. So how's it going, Andrea?
It's going pretty well. As you can hear in my voice, I'm getting over a little something. Got back from vacation and some viral bug took me down. Not COVID, I'm very happy to say, but an
Yes.
actual cold-esque something took me down. So I'm getting better, but excuse my scraggly voice this week. But things are going well. And the chocolate news it's an interesting mix of things that have happened this week. I'm going to start off with the second year that the Cincinnati Black Tech Week is sold out in Cincinnati this week. They have a lot of good workshops, seminars. There is some business pitches being taken by Incorporated Magazine, or I should say Inc. Magazine. There, Procter & Gamble's doing a presentation. The Black Achievers are holding a networking event tonight. The big keynote is Issa Rae. She'll be tomorrow. It'll be interesting to hear what she has to say because she's on the forefront of not just Hollywood, the strike, but also she started out streaming on YouTube. And from there, she's gotten production deals based on what she proved with YouTube and just developing her own show, which there are a number of shows on YouTube that people follow. I mean, she's the best example that everyone can see that's taking it and run with it. But there's another guy on YouTube called Terrell Chris, who is he started his own talk show 6 years ago, and he now has 1 million followers, and he's starting to get all the big names to come on his talk show. In fact, he just had this year Kelly Clarkson, Kiki Palmer, Samara Joy, Adelaide. I can't think of her. I see her face, but I can't think of her name. Starts with an A. But he's getting all the top, instead of the unknowns or semi-known, he's getting known people. Actually, I can never remember which twin it is. I think it was Tia Mowry. I think she's getting ready to be on there next, or has been on there. So but Issa Rae is going to talk about how do you build your brand, how do you build your business, but how do you utilize digital to attract people to your content. So I think it's going to be a very interesting keynote that she's going to have on Black Tech Week, which leads into Black Music Hall of Fame and the Cincinnati Music Festival. So it's a big week of Blackness in Cincinnati, if we can say that. So,
Oh yeah. No, most
believe it
definitely.
or not. Can you believe
Yeah.
it? All
I
week is blackness of Cincinnati. So
Yeah, I can't believe it either. And yeah, I remember when she started her web series. I think it was called The Adventures of the Awkward Black Girl or
yes.
something like that. And that actually got spun off into Insecure. And actually I just discovered the other day that Insecure is on Netflix. So folks, if you want to check out all 5 seasons, that's on Netflix right now.
You know,
It's a very good show.
I never saw the last season, so I'm going to be checking it out on Netflix. So that's what's big happening this week in Cincinnati. But also, it's sort of like the other side of what's happening in Cincinnati. We had a 37-year-old woman who was killed in the drive-by shooting in the 1900 block of Freeman Avenue in the West End on Sunday evening, which is kind of, I thought drive-by shootings were stopped.
Yeah.
But they're picking back up again. And supposedly, I think this woman was an innocent victim of the drive-by shooting. I don't even think she was the target, from what I understand. The police are still investigating, looking for clues, and we need to find out what happened with that. Also, another incident, and 3 separate incidents, 3 Metro bus operators were assaulted over the weekend, which it used to be the safest thing to ride a bus. Now, 2 men and 1 woman was assaulted in these 3 separate incidents. It's kind of unreal when you can't even trust people getting on the bus, you know?
Yeah.
The first attack happened near Washington Park on Route 21. Then another incident happened on Route 24. And that resulted in the person being arrested at the scene, thank goodness. And then the third incident occurred again on was Metro Bus 24. So it's just kind of sad that 3 incidents for bus drivers. Everyone is having a hard time filling these positions. And you would think that being a bus driver would be safe. I know you have to deal with people all shapes and sizes and attitudes all the time. As a bus driver, having been a former bus rider myself, I've seen it all, heard it all. So I know what they go through. But this is blatant assault it's just crazy. It's just crazy.
Yeah, and sad too. I'm like, oh my goodness.
It is, especially with Metro trying to transform themselves to meeting the needs of the 21st century and the 21st century worker. You can't have this happening. I understand people will take their frustration out on other people, but don't take it out on the bus driver. They have nothing to do with you.
Exactly.
They're just trying to help you get to where you're going. It's just sad. It's just really, really sad. I would also say that another incident, which is kind of far-fetched. Well, I should say far-fetched. It's something that started. Everyone has been hearing the story about the missing Alabama woman who was gone for 48 hours, and then she ended up walking back home, and the police came, took her to the hospital, and then she was released. Now they're trying to pull together what happened, create a timeline. Now, what's interesting about this story is, as the police are investigating the quote abduction or disappearance of Carlee Russell, it has been in Hoover. Let me put it like this. Let me go back. Carlee Russell is the person who was quote abducted. She called 911, claiming that she saw a toddler on the side of the highway. She stopped, and she was the only one who called about a child on the highway. Next thing you know, she called a sister-in-law who heard screaming, and next thing you know, it was gone. The police found her car, her wig, her keys, her phone, everything left, and you just didn't know what happened to her. Now, I was at a leadership conference. She happens to be an Alpha Kappa Alpha woman, and the news hit her line sisters and people who knew her really, really hard, and it was spread all over the leadership conference. In fact, I got a chance, her former graduate advisor, I was walking into a hotel with the woman, and we were talking about what was happening, how everyone was sharing the story on social media to make sure that whoever saw her could report what they saw to the police. She came home Sunday night, and now they're investigating, and that's where we are. Now, the police today have updated their investigation by saying that there are holes in her story. There are holes in the fact that she's the only one who saw this kid on the highway. They're still trying to pull together different things are not adding up to her story. So it's fearful that even though the family members say, yes, she fought for her life, that maybe the circumstances of how this began might be suspect, but what she went through might be true, but what led up to it, we just don't know. So we're still seeing what's going to happen to this. It's kind of like a sad situation. You hate to hear that a woman go through a circumstance, then no one believes her. There are people just glad that she's back, but at the same time, what happened? So we will continue to follow the story, and we'll update you as soon as we know what's going on. And last but not least, you know more about this than I do. Everyone has heard Fran Drescher gave a passionate speech when the SAG strike started. I've never heard her that passionate before in my life, and it was great. And then the woman who played Kimmy on Bob Love's Abishola, she came out and said a passionate speech. There have been other people coming out, putting stuff on Instagram, things like that. And it is, I think you can explain better than what I can what's going on.
Yeah, most definitely. So I think this all really started with the Writers Guild of America strike, because writers went on strike, I think sometime early May or something, something around that. But I know it's been around 2 months, and basically a lot of this, where it's coming from, is AI. It's AI, artificial intelligence, and residuals for streaming. I think those are like basically the two things that are doing this. And the effects of AI and residuals from streaming, those were 2 points that, came into the SAG negotiations too. And I have to say, it's kind of unique because SAG AFTRA, it just used to be actually two unions. It used to just be SAG and AFTRA. The actors and writers haven't been on strike together since 1960, and that was when
Mm.
Ronald Reagan was the president of SAG. So very interesting, just an interesting fact to just hear. But the actors haven't been on strike since, I believe, it's 1980 or 81, something around that. But it's been a while, and I think that strike lasted for a month, I believe. But anyway, so I'm not going to be biased here. The studios, or I think the studios are called. They're the Alliance of Motion Pictures and Television Producers. So basically, the studio system. They're trying to cry, "Oh, we're broke. We don't have any money." Yet the other day, Bob Iger signed another contract for like $30 million. And if you don't know, Bob Iger is the CEO of the Walt Disney Company. So the studios are trying to claim that they don't have any money. They don't have enough for residuals from streaming media, but I think that's a lie. I think they have plenty of money. If they can pay their CEOs this much money, I think they can find a little bit more money for the actors and the writers. And by the way, the writers and the actors' demands are not unreasonable, because the other day Bob Iger was interviewed the other day, and he was talking about the unrealistic demands of the actors and everything. And just a day after that news came out that he signed the 30 million contract for the next 2 years. And also he was at a billionaires retreat too. So that looked really bad. And it kind of surprised me because he's usually been very creative, driven, friendly, unlike his predecessor, Bob Chapek, who was the CEO from Disney from like 2020 to 2022. But basically, yeah, it's basically residuals from streaming media, and it's artificial intelligence. Because one of the things that was like really noticeable, like what really struck me as like really unreasonable, is that so, like, for example, let's say you're an extra in the movie, and actually I was an extra in the movie. It's some Netflix movie called Point Break with Anthony Mackie and Frank Grillo. I'm actually in the movie. You can see me for like a split second. That's my claim to fame.
Really? Okay. I
Yeah,
mean, everyone gets 15 minutes, so you get
yeah.
your
But yeah, so anyway, so I was an extra in that movie. So if the studios get their way, what they want to do, so like an extra gets, I don't know, about $180 for a day. They want to scan, they would scan the extra, so they would scan my face, and then they would use my face forever, and I would never get residuals, no matter how many times they would use my face. And they want to do that for extras, not only extras, but for actors too. They want to use your image, likeness, and performance and train the new AI systems without consent or compensation. That part
okay.
just really rubbed me the wrong way. Besides the residuals, it's like that really rubbed me the wrong way. I was like, wow, that's really greedy right there.
That's like that's like how they used to Photoshop people into pictures,
Yeah,
and same thing, only with AI. And I think it's not fair because I mean, how many times we can watch movies over and over and over again. I mean, it's kind of unfair that people have their favorite movies, but you're not going to receive amount of money for the residual check before being seen and known for that character forever. Um, it's just kind of sad.
yeah. Yeah.
It's really, really sad. But I mean, it's. I know my mother was in commercials, so I understand a
Hmm.
little bit of this.
Right.
And I know would get, she didn't get that many royalty checks because she got paid for whatever commercial for so long could appear. And then after that time, she would get so much money if they used the commercial again.
Right.
And I think she got maybe one or two residual checks, and that was it.
Right.
But I sort of understand it because she had to join. I think she joined at that time. Was it SAG or AFTRA? I
It
think she
might have
joined.
been. It might have been AFTRA.
I think she joined AFTRA, and there's a lot of hard work that goes into making commercials, TV shows,
Oh yeah.
movies, what have you. Even though you sit around a lot, but once you're on,
Yeah.
and you film forever long, whatever side things they have to get, then they're good. And I think you need to be paid, and especially for Hollywood, people need to be able to get health care. They need to be able
Yes.
to afford to live and things like that. Yes, you make some good money when you make it, but those behind the scenes don't make a lot of money. But they're making other people look good.
Yeah.
So I think they're everyone's due. I think finally the studio system needs to just become like every corporate America and provide certain benefits when they have a project.
Yeah. It that's exactly that. Because and especially with the residuals, because actors, they live off the residuals. Because the residuals, you're supposed to live off your residuals until you get another job. That's how it's been. That's how it's always, well, ever since, the last strike, that's how it's been, because that's just how it works. But the problem with with the streaming now, and in my opinion, I think the big holdout is Netflix. I really do. Now I could be wrong. Maybe it's Disney. Maybe Paramount's a holdout. Maybe Amazon's a holdout. I don't know. I think it's Netflix though. That's just my opinion. But Netflix doesn't like to show their numbers, their viewership numbers. They really don't like to show their numbers. It's like, so it can be hard. So I guess the executives at Netflix, they're like, oh, well, we don't like to show our numbers. And I kind of understand, if I can play devil's advocate here for a minute, I kind of understand what position Netflix is in. Because let's say, I don't know. So I'm going to assume like shows like Stranger Things gets more money than, I don't know, XYZ show, whatever random show that drops on Netflix. So does that mean you pay more residuals to the people of Stranger Things than XYZ show? Like if The Crown comes on, does that mean you pay more residuals to The Crown? What about the movies? Like, do you pay more residuals to Adam Sandler for the next movie he comes on instead of like some random actor, who stars in the movie? It's like, so I'm just wondering, because Netflix, they make their money by subscriber growth. That's all they make money for. They don't make their money any other way. So I kind of get what position Netflix is on, but at the same time, pay your talent, pay your writers,
Yeah,
pay your actors.
I mean, and Netflix has a lot of original shows.
Yeah.
I think The Crown. I mean, I've watched what is it? Three new original shows. The Crown is original, and in its latest season. The Night Agent is an original show, which was very good. The
Mm-hmm.
Diplomat is an original show and it's international. Night Agent was not international, but it sort of had an international component.
Yeah,
Um, I mean, but they also have other original programming from around the world
exactly.
that are on there, from Africa, from England, from I forgot where else they have, Germany, and
Yeah,
just other
yeah,
kinds of original programming. I mean, just think about it. They have original programming for each country they're in, and then
yeah,
there's some certain common ones. So somehow they're making money.
yeah. They, of course, they're making
Regardless of
money.
how
That's how they pay their
and
CEOs.
and on top of that, because Netflix bore down on the sharing of passwords, their subscriptions went up
I
because
saw
they're not
that.
allowing people to share the passwords. I mean, I know I have my Netflix on. I have both an Amazon Fire Stick, and 2 Rokus. And
Hmm.
my Netflix is on 3. And you can do that as long as it's just you, but you
Right.
can't share it. But I think it's just, but if the actors don't put their foot down now, how are they going to make money unless they all decide to become independent producers and then figure out a way to get a content deal,
Exactly.
and
Exactly.
own the content this way, that way. I mean, that's probably the reason why more and more actors have their own production companies.
Oh yeah, most definitely.
Especially,
That's why when you're an actor, the goal is to become your own producer. That's the goal.
I mean, especially Black actors. They've been producing their own stuff for a while. And they know how those who choose to have their own production companies, they get more work because they own the content. They own what they're doing. It's gonna be interesting to see what happens and
It
how long, because I know the executives don't want to just break the strike until everyone starts losing their homes and stuff. And I'm like, but you
Yeah,
know what? Everyone will go get another job until,
exactly.
you know, it's not that simple. That's a flawed plan to wait until everyone starts losing their stuff. You know,
Yeah, yeah,
a lot of people
exactly.
are already working 2 or 3 jobs right now to survive. So you're not going to
Exactly.
break them. It's the principle of
Exactly.
the thing. I mean, they're doing what they love, and they have to do extra stuff. Like I do what I love working for the Cincinnati Herald, even though, I'm also have another gig.
Yep, me
It's what
too.
I like. I like content. I like creating content. I like doing this stuff. But I forgot one more story before
Oh,
we
right, 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 right. Of course.
but you know what? In a way, it's a nice segue talking about the strike and royalties. We can talk about reparations.
Yes.
And in the Illinois city, they are paying the city of Evanston, Illinois, has a historic reparations program by providing compensation to many of its Black residents. Checks and vouchers in the amount of $25,000 have been sent to eligible residents, a move that backs up the city's 2019 promise to pay as much as $10 million over the next decade in reparation. It was approved in March 2021 that targets Black residents who resided in Evanston between 1919 and 1969 or experienced housing discrimination due to the city's policies. And they're now trying to help those, especially those who are elderly, ease their final years decently. So I think it's very interesting.
It is very interesting because I remember we were talking about reparations in the earlier podcast episodes. Like I think California was trying to do this.
Yes.
But now that they're actually doing it in a city, that's like, wow, maybe there is hope by some slim chance.
I mean, it's and there is a group here in Cincinnati that is focused on reparations. And I remember one woman said reparations does not mean money. It could mean fixing policies so that we're not subjected to certain things ever again. It means providing better affordable housing, just things that help the poor. Excuse me, because not everyone's going to say, like, hold their hand out for give me the money, though the money would be nice.
Oh yeah,
But it could be that reparations could be like, you know what, you could just forgive my student loan. I would be
yeah,
happy with that, but I'm getting ready prepared. I just got my email notice saying, be prepared to start paying back your student loan again. So that's going to be interesting.
yeah, most
But
definitely.
I think it's one of those things of the United States set a precedent when they paid reparation to those Asian Americans who were put into concentration camps here in American soil during World War II. Now, mind you, some of those were elderly people when they got those checks.
Hmm.
They still pay reparations to them. I just think that people don't want to admit the truth about certain things that ancestors did, but we're still feeling the effects of 40 acres and a mule.
Oh yeah, most
And,
definitely.
And I know some people say, like, just give me a handout. I'm like, well, I would rather see a strategic help with the Black community on certain things, especially if you can prove it. You have the
Hmm.
family tree to prove it. You know, my family has gone back in time, and we know who began our family, where they began, and with who, and it was slaves. In fact, my great great I can't remember if he's two greats or one great grandfather was a slave, and he was, when they, during the Depression, they wrote the slave narratives, went around the country interviewing people, and he's in the Missouri book for slave narratives. And I have a copy of what he said.
Oh, wow.
And you know, it's just one of those things. Of and he was a believer in education. And every family member is, go get an education. It doesn't matter what you do, but at least be able to understand what you're going to do. And he was a big believer in education. He was very, very proud of his daughter, who became who had got her doctorate, and she traveled all over the world. Very proud of, I think, his brother, who was a doctor, and just all kinds of stuff. So, but reparations is one of those soft political issues that people will either fight or uphold or not uphold. And it may never happen, or it may happen in bits and pieces.
Yeah.
But I think in the long run, America needs to take a step back, look at the history, don't deny it. It's in the history books. Why try to deny now what happened? Because you don't want to be blamed for it. Well, that's stupid, you
Yeah.
know. But at the same time, we have a lot of crazy people right now,
Yes, we do.
unfortunately. But that is
Unfortunately.
all. But that is all the chocolate news that we have for today.
All right. Well, thank you, Andrea. And yeah, that's it for today. I want to thank Andrea again for all the chocolate news. Thank you, Andrea, so much. It's always appreciated.
I will keep my eye out for more chocolate news.
And remember, folks, you can find out more information about today's topics and past podcast episodes at www.thecincinnatiherald.com, the Sesh newsletter, or on our social media. We're on Facebook, Twitter, Pinterest, Instagram, and LinkedIn. And make sure to subscribe to our podcast on your favorite podcast app. Our podcast is on Apple, Spotify, TuneIn Radio, Amazon, YouTube, and Google Podcasts. In addition, the Cincinnati Herald is now accepting applications for an advertising representative. Please contact our publisher, Walter White, at 513-680-7076 for more information. I'm John Alexander Reese.
And I'm Andria Carter.
And have a good day.